After 5 years of battling terminal cancer, Kelvin's last flame of life was extinguished, and his soul entered the heavenly realm. Having accidentally given him such a miserable life, the goddess of reincarnation decided to erase all of his memories, and converted them into broken skills and overpowered abilities, sending him to be reborn into his new world. As he moved his body for the first time in years, he realized that he had no memories of his previous life. But the cheat system of God appeared before his eyes, and as he pressed to start, the goddess's voice emanated from the screen. He was now inside a fantasy world with the rarest class, the S-rank Summoner class, and the goddess gave him his first quest of signing up to the Adventurers Guild. Along the way, the goddess Melfina revealed that he spent 3 days confessing his love to her, so she fell in love with him, and became the first goddess to ever become his servant. But when the Wizard of Oz begged to see how hot she was, she revealed that she was level 345, and that he needed to level up before gaining enough mana points to summon her. Once he made it to the Adventurers Guild, Melfina warned him to conceal his class, as he was the only S-rank summoner in their nation, and could cause a world war to break out over his powers. So instead, he hid his S-rank class to appear ordinary, and was given his F-rank card for being an ugly, useless failure. In order to rank up, he would need to complete 10 missions at each rank, so he decided to hunt blue slimes for his first mission, hoping to make one of them his first familiar. By the time he arrived at the forest, he found 3 victims to make into his first summon, so as he used his unique S-rank appraisal skill, he realized that he needed their consent to make one of them his familiar. However, since slimes weren't able to speak, he decided to use his Diddy method of beating them up until they were forced into consent.
Hey yo, what the fuck?
But as he launched at the slime, it leaped away before jumping to knock him back, reducing half of his health in a single strike. Even so, he got up as the slime continued mocking him, so he rushed forward before it dodged again, and hit him multiple times until it nearly drained all of his hit points. However, he had now discovered its weakness, and as he rushed forward, he feinted an attack before using his momentum to spin back, and hit the slime with a massive strike that sent it to the ground. Although it had lost only 2 hit points, he was now able to force it into consenting. But as he raised his arm to commence the spell, he felt all of his energy being drained. However, the slime's body began to disintegrate, and as its soul began combining within Kelvin's body, he decided to name him Clotho, before feeling a warmth from within his heart. This was the happiness his slime felt for being given a name, so Kelvin decided to consume the remainder of his MP to summon Clotho, and had completed his first quest. But although Kelvin didn't want Clotho killing his own kind to level up, the little fucker was a cannibal savage, and was excited to begin hunting his family. A few hours later, they located Clotho's parents, so as Kelvin leaped high, he used his wind magic to slash through Clotho's mom, while Clotho dashed around his father until he killed him off. He had grown significantly stronger because of his S-rank summoner skill, as it grants him 100 skill points for every familiar he tames. So after killing the 3rd slime, their mission was now complete, and he now had enough money to afford sleeping inside a ghetto motel for his first night. But along his way, he found a black marketeer selling slaves, and as he laid his eyes on a hot elf, he noticed the sad look in her eyes, and decided to walk away. A few hours later, he arrived at the inn, where a fat-ass disgusting hag welcomed him inside. But as he realized there were no baths in this world, Melfina reminded him that his disgusting ass never showered in his previous life anyway, just like you losers watching the video right now.
Yo. That one there was a violation, personally I wouldn't have it.
By the 3rd morning in his new life, Roxanne. Wrong show. There must be a massive reason why I always make this mistake. As Ruby congratulated him on being promoted to E rank, the other adventurers began suspecting him of cheating on his missions. But Ruby warned him to be careful, as many adventurers die on their first D rank mission. But when he decided to get new equipment before his first quest, a shit-faced ugly dickhead appeared, introducing himself as Cashel, a D-rank adventurer. However, all of the other adventurers knew he was a B-rank killer, who lured new adventurers into their deaths by lying to them, but were too scared to stand up to him since he was the strongest in their guild. So as he asked Kelvin to join them on defeating the Black Ghost Knight, Ruby screamed for them not to take the mission, as every D-rank adventurer died attempting to fight him. Hearing those words, Kelvin refused his invitation, but after appraising his skills, he noticed that he had the murderer title attached to him. So instead, he decided to challenge him to a race, with the winner being the first to defeat the Black Ghost Knight, and said that he would even fight the boss on his own. Confident he would win, the had accepted the challenge before deciding to leave. However, when he arrived inside an alley, a loser who looked like he was fighting a crippling addiction for 30 years named Gimmel, what a f***ing introduction, revealed that his C-rank appraising eye couldn't read Kelvin's stats. At the same time, a fat-ass retarded brain-dead moron named Raj thought he could squash Kelvin like the others before him, exciting Cashel at the thought of being entertained. That night, after they arrived at the spirit's castle, they discovered that all the undead monsters had been slain. But Kelvin appeared at that moment. As they noticed his staff, they thought he was a green mage, but Kelvin revealed that the Black Knight was on the other side of the door, and didn't want them interrupting his fight. After all, he had discovered they were planning to assassinate him, so he was willing to face them head-on. Although the losers were shocked, Cashel thought Kelvin was a moron for coming alone, and began wondering if Kelvin was after the bounty on his men. However, Kelvin revealed that he was here to help Baldy grow back his hair, as he had a secret for getting the best hair in the world. His secret was that he had signed up for HIMS, the best health and wellness program, offering a range of products to help stop your hair loss and regrow your hair. If you're a shiny shit stain just like me, or you're afraid that all your hair is going to fall out before you get to meet your dream crush, then HIMS hair loss treatment is perfect for you. With HIMS, you can regrow your hair in as few as 6 months, with the ingredients being doctor trusted, and treatments prescribed through vetted board licensed providers. And if you're tired of your receding hairline, you can begin the process right now by taking an online consultation with a healthcare provider, who will determine if a prescription is appropriate for you. So what is your bald ass waiting for? Use the link in my description to sign up for the best hair loss treatment that'll turn you into a hot alpha male like Kelvin, so that you can amass a harem of hot chicks that would make twitchy addicts jealous. The treatment process is simple and 100% online. No insurance is required, even with automatic refills and delivery management. You'll receive complete support, including free check-ins and messaging with medical providers, as well as free shipping directly to you. You'll finally look hotter and won't remain an ugly, pathetic bald head loser like these shiny shit stains.
Damn!
However, Kelvin had no idea they had a bounty on them, but as he thought it was his lucky day, he told the fat-ass cow to attack him. Wondering who was being called a cow, Raj began rushing towards him, but as he stepped into a mud vine, he began sinking into the ground. With Mudvine usually taking minutes to activate, Cashel realized they had walked into his trap, but Gimmel thought he was useless for not detecting his magic at all. As Kelvin launched Wind Cutter on them, Gimmel began running off, realizing he would die if he faced off against him. However, as Cashel began running to the corner, Kelvin summoned Clotho before Gimmel's eyes, in its new form as an evolved slime Glutonia. So as the worthless douchebag began running back, Kelvin remembered how Clotho evolved into the legendary Quasi-Demon King class monster that once destroyed nations, as it hurled Gimmel into the wall. With all his might, Raj managed to punch himself free, but as he thought he could take on the slime, it restrained him in an instant, so Cashel decided to charge in for the kill. With all the men unconscious, Kelvin decided to enter the second room, and saw the Black Ghost Knight before him. Activating his appraisal eye, Kelvin discovered he was a level 53 Dark Knight, and wished to have him in his party. So hoping to grow stronger, he told the knight that he was here to defeat him, and subjugate him into becoming his familiar. However, the dumbass knight spent the next few hours revealing that he was the first loser to actually talk to him, and that he only developed a personality a few days ago. As Kelvin wondered if this world was filled with mentally ill morons, Melfina reminded him that they were here to make him a familiar. But although the knight had already lost his king and previous country, he was only willing to serve him if he was a powerful master, so he decided to accept the challenge, and as they faced off, he revealed that his name was Gerard. As the shittiest CGI of all anime transformed the battlefield, Kelvin rushed forward launching a wind shot, but Gerard parried it away, and managed to hold down the slime. Realizing Gerard had Mind's Eye, Gerard commanded Kelvin to quit holding back, so as he activated Earthen Rampart, his slime self-destructed, but Gerard whipped a slash that destroyed his wall with a single strike. Realizing he was lucky to be alive, Kelvin cast Cleft Chasm to trip him off balance, but Gerard retaliated with a strike that nearly killed Kelvin. So as Clotho pierced him with a sword, Gerard managed to fend it off, but when Kelvin tried to suppress him with an air pressure spell, Gerard's internal memories began to return. He remembered that an elf messenger had visited his kingdom, commanding the king to serve them. But after the king refused his demands, a terrible plague killed off his entire nation. His wife begged him to take their daughter away before losing her life, so with ghosts being the only thing that remained, he began escaping the hell that became his country. But even though he managed to leave, his horse died a few days later, and he had hit his limits a long time ago. With his awakened powers, Gerard blasted Kelvin's barrier, but as Kelvin managed to trap him with another air pressure spell, he had finally created the opening he needed. The following day, he submitted a fragment of Gerard's armor for his reward, so as Ruby confirmed it was real, all the useless adventurers began wondering how he managed to beat him, and even defeated Cashel's disgusting group on his own. But as Ruby told Kelvin that he would be instantly promoted to D rank, she hoped he would show her what the D really stood for. However, Kelvin thought she was too flat for plot development.
Damn!
As Gerard thought Ruby would be a perfect addition to his harem, Melfina screamed that she was his only wife. But at that instant, Kelvin came across the guildmaster, and as he told him that his name was Leo, he wondered if he was reincarnated from another world. With his appraisal eye skill being A rank, Kelvin realized he was able to see straight through his stats, and knew he was f***ed since he wasn't careful. While they were inside his office, Leo knew that a weak adventurer wouldn't have been able to defeat Cashel, let alone the Black Ghost Knight without a party, and saw straight through his S-rank summoner skill. But with his secret already exposed, Gerard's voice told him to hold his ground, as he needed to create powerful allies who knew about his powers, so he can grow even stronger. So without any other choice, Kelvin decided to admit the truth, and wondered what Leo truly wanted. So as Leo began saying that he wanted a friend, he explained that he once met a group of heroes reincarnated from another world. But Kelvin never realized there were others like him. As Leo went on to say that they were the heroes of the Holy Empire of Durames, he explained that the priestess of Durames had summoned them after hearing the prophecy of God, and had revealed that the Demon King would soon be revived. All of the monsters across the continent had grown violent because of his revival, and he thought it was the same reason why the Black Ghost Knight was so strong during their battle. When Kelvin realized that Leo wanted him to protect the town from monsters, Leo told him that he would pay for the job, and even promised to increase his rank while giving him all the freedom he wanted. These words were all Kelvin wanted to hear, so as he agreed to help him, he shook his hand. Later that day, the fat-ass motel hostess named Claire congratulated him for getting promoted, and the disgusting old hag revealed that the news had spread throughout the entire town. On his way to his room, Gerard wondered if that fat bitch was another one of his conquests. But as Melfina began to cry, he said that the fat-ass bitch probably looked better than her anyway.
What did he say?
A few minutes later, while Kelvin was having lunch in his room, he remembered Leo's words about the Demon King. But Melfina told him that it was the job of the heroes to defeat him, so he could enjoy his new life instead. As he remembered his battle with Gerard, he thought he was lucky to have barely survived, and summoned Clotho at that moment. He had saved his cash inside Clotho's inventory skill, so as he headed outside, Gerard's voice wondered where he was going.
This is not okay. This needs to stop now. This is cancer.
Although Gerard thought he was going to use her for plot development, Kelvin revealed that it was only to enhance his party, as there was one that already caught his eye. Because his battle with Gerard was too close, he needed a slave who had never been touched by another master, so he could force her to pick the skill points that would make her the strongest ally for backline support, and even destroy her back. However, as he entered the slave alley, he saw a worthless man on fire, but the merchant managed to save his pathetic life. As the hobo grew angry because he was selling a cursed slave, Kelvin realized it was the same elf he had seen. And the ugly dickhead began explaining that she had a terrible curse that burned anyone who touched her. So as Kelvin activated his appraising eye, he discovered she had the Fire Dragon King's curse, and noticed that her skill points were never used. Wondering what skill he needed to break her curse, Melfina revealed that he needed the Sacred Bless spell and needed to reach a rank in white magic.
What did he say?
By the time the sun was setting, the merchant screamed at the blondie for being such a worthless, pathetic slave. But Kelvin returned at that moment, asking if he could still buy that ugly bitch. As he was shocked by these words, he wondered why he would ever want a useless cursed elf, but Kelvin used his big balls and gave him a pouch of gold coins. Before long, the mushroom head began telling the elf that Kelvin was her new master, so as she looked at her free open sky for the first time in her life, she began following him. After they entered another alley, she tried thanking him for buying her, and told him that her name was Ephiel. So as Kelvin also introduced himself, he asked her to join his party and to fight next to him. But as she tried warning him about her curse, and said she had been a slave ever since she was born, she began crying as she never even knew her parents. So as Kelvin drew close to comfort her, she pulled away, crying that she didn't want to hurt anyone anymore. Although he didn't know what she's been through, he promised to never let her suffer anymore and held her hands, telling her that her curse was now broken. That night, after Kelvin returned to the inn, the fat ass noticed Ephiel standing behind him, but Kelvin asked Claire if she could get her clothes after dinner. However, Claire told him that she wasn't running a soup kitchen, and said that she would change Ephiel before she could eat. Afraid she would burn the useless lady and do this world a favor, Ephiel tried to slowly touch her first. So as she realized her body wasn't engulfed in flames, she decided to hold her hand. Before she knew it, Claire yanked her ass away to give her a proper bath and left the room. With the moon in the sky, Kelvin continued waiting at the table, but the fat ass finally arrived and summoned Ephiel into the room. As he realized that Claire was the greatest woman of culture in the world, she tried telling him to say something already. Eventually, the simp told her that it was shampoo in his pants. So as Ephiel blushed, she promised to serve him some sausage to fill his belly, and would even allow his sausage to fill her belly.
What do you mean by that?
Later that day, they had dinner together, and he spent the rest of the night introducing her to Gerard and Clotho, before making her choose the double growth rate and double skill points passives to make her overpowered. However, he allowed her to choose the rest of her skills, hoping she would learn to make decisions on her own. But although everything was fine, there was still one problem. With Claire being the greatest plot master of all time, she pretended as if there were no other beds in the inn. But his black summoner of the night continued being summoned, even though he wasn't ready to pay child support. But on the other side of the world, a hot girl was being held hostage by a demon. As the weeks went by, Kelvin and Ephiel defeated monsters to level up, and Ephiel used up her skill points on archery and far-seeing skills. So when Gerard managed to stop a sage tree, she fired a blaze arrow that blew up the monster. The combination of her high-level archery and fire dragon grace gave her an original technique, and Gerard wondered how the fuck she was destroying monsters in a maid dress. Later that day, after they returned to the guild, Ruby told Kelvin that he would be allowed to take the rank up exam after completing one more job, and Ephiel was excited that Kelvin would be reaching a rank in a week. However, as Ruby began saying there was a new tasty bakery in town, she asked Ephiel if she wanted to go with her. But although she was excited to go, she asked Kelvin to come along. So as Ruby told him that it would be rude to turn down her request, the professor of quantum physics decided to accept. But all the other bitches were jealous that she got a date with him. The following day, after Kelvin arrived at the spot, he realized he had been set up for a date. But when Ruby arrived, Kelvin was glad to see the ugliest bitch in the kingdom on his day off. At that moment, Ephiel also arrived, and as she glowed before their eyes, Kelvin forgot how to speak, before apologizing that he always had shampoo in his pants. However, Ruby thought she was too cute, and as she noticed how round and plump she was, she began developing Effiel's plot in the middle of the street. As they began to eat, Effiel tried feeding Kelvin her cake, but as 3 men noticed them, they began growing jealous as no bitch would ever want them. At the same time, Ruby tried giving Kelvin her own cake, so as the women were glad that even ugly-ass Ruby found a man, Kelvin suggested they keep their cakes for the motel, but everyone thought he was taking them home to clap their cakes. At that moment, a short ugly fatso appeared, saying that commoners shouldn't engage in romance, as his guard kicked off their table. When Kelvin wondered who these ugly asses were, the guard introduced the useless dwarf as Tabra, the 3rd prince of Trison. However, when Tabra directed his men to seize the girls, Kelvin blasted one into a wall, before blasting the second. He realized the losers were actually E rank, so he used his air pressure to restrain Tabra. When he wondered why he came, Tabra tried telling him to kiss his ass, but Kelvin forced him down on his own ass. Eventually, the fatso admitted that he wanted to meet Leo, having heard about the powerful adventurer that was within the town, and admitted that he wanted the adventurer to serve him. Realizing he was the person Tabra was looking for, Kelvin knocked him unconscious, but as he began leaving, Effiel thought her daddy was incredible. At the Holy Empire of Durames, the priestess of the cathedral named Colette summoned Melfina and revealed an orb showing the hero's stats. As she asked for her oracle, Melfina told her that she sensed an evil presence from the western continent and directed her to send the heroes there, but warned her to keep them away from Parth. As she disappeared, the heroes arrived, wondering what happened, but Colette's obsessive ass had already climaxed after hearing Melfina's voice. Back in Parth, Kelvin noticed that Effiel was awake, but as she began wondering if she wasn't hot enough for him, she began crying. As she admitted that she loved him as a man, she thought he was the only one who allowed her to feel human warmth. As his words made her happy, she got down and started giving him head, but he wondered why the fuck she was giving head to his chest. However, he realized they needed a home soon, as his black summoner couldn't survive any more of these nights. The following morning, as they observed the hero's stats, Kelvin realized they were actually weak and pathetic. But as he wondered what the fuck they had been doing since they were summoned, the ugly hag began telling him that the guild was calling onto him. So as he visited Leo's office, the guild master revealed that a demon was found inside a D-rank dungeon, and that it was sealed inside. But although Kelvin was hesitant, Leo revealed that he was having a hard time cleaning an international mess that was caused by an ugly loser, who beat up Prince Tabra. So as he asked him once more if he would accept the job, Kelvin accepted in an instant, and thought that Leo was the real demon. The next day, he arrived inside the hut with his group, and as Gerard opened the dungeon entrance, Effiel cast a yellow orb to light the way. As they made their way down, they walked through the dungeon for hours, but realized that no monster was in sight. Eventually, they arrived at a door, but as Kelvin revealed that he could sense 2 life forms inside, he thought one was weak, while the other one was threatening. As they entered, noticing the skulls around, they saw an unconscious hot demon girl, but the real demon welcomed them inside. He told them that he was Archdemon Victor, so as Kelvin realized that even lesser demons were B rank, he was excited to finally have a real fight, and wondered who the girl was, but Victor sealed the entire floor. He told them that she was the Demon King's daughter, and explained that the Demon King had kept her existence a secret because of all of his enemies. As he rushed towards them, colliding with Gerard's shield, the force drove him back, but as he explained that his gluttony skill allowed him to steal the characteristics of whomever he ate, Kelvin realized he intended to steal their human characteristics so that he would break the seal, and bring back the girl as the new Demon King. Using his magic, Kelvin attacked the demon with an air pressure, but he easily dispersed it, revealing that he actually intended to also eat out the demon girl, and become the new Demon Lord. Noticing Kelvin was smiling again, the demon demanded to know why, so Kelvin admitted that he had never met an enemy as strong as him, and as the thought made him excited, Effiel thought that he had become a hardcore battle junkie. So as Victor decided to awaken the army of Hades, he snapped to force them to attack, but Kelvin annihilated them with a wind shot, while Gerard warded off the others. As he whipped a blast to obliterate another group of demons, more continued to appear, so he worked together with Kelvin to annihilate them. However, Victor was only getting started, and punched the ground to create a smoke screen, but Gerard managed to parry his attack, and as he slashed him, Kelvin managed to evade his assault. At the same time, Gerard continued attacking the demon, but as he punched his shield, he increased his firepower to blow him away, and Kelvin realized that Gerard was no match for him. Just then, Victor prepared a second attack, but as Kelvin managed to parry it, he commanded Clotho to restrain his hand. But it barely escaped getting blasted. Immediately, Kelvin unleashed Glory Sanctuary to restrain the demon, so as Gerard returned to join the battle, Victor began trying to break out of the bound. Realizing he was too strong, Kelvin released Voltec's Edge onto Gerard's sword, so as he charged forward, Ephiel materialized behind the demon, readying her blaze arrow. When she fired, Victor parried with his hand, but Gerard hacked him with his sword, ripping his arm off. However, with the restraint already broken, Kelvin commanded his party to retreat, but the demon revealed that he was only getting started. Before their eyes, he began transforming into a Jinn scrimmage, but as Kelvin wanted to stop the transformation, he casted Cleft Detonation, and Ephiel unleashed a Pyrohydra. Even so, Victor repelled them, but as Gerard's attack eventually made impact, Kelvin realized that Victor had already completed his transformation. Knowing his attack was next, Kelvin told Gerard to turn up his loyalty skill, so as the demon flew towards them, destroying the barrier to attack Gerard. He barely managed to parry him. Immediately, he charged in, but Victor knocked him down before getting hit with an arrow. With Ephiel ready to cover for him, she told Gerard to not give up, and began repelling Victor with arrows. So as Gerard joined the fight once again, forcing Victor to back away, Ephiel blasted him once more, and Clotho released dozens of cursed weapons to weaken him. Wanting to leverage their advantage, Kelvin launched a Radiance Lancer, and Ephiel supported with a Blaze Arrow while Clotho released an Energy Blast. Their combined attack made Victor realize he was screwed, so as it blasted him into the wall, he spotted the falling pillar, but managed to save the girl from getting flattened. However, it consumed every last ounce of his strength, so as he admitted losing, Kelvin demanded to know the truth, having figured that he never intended to actually eat the Demon King's daughter. As Victor decided to admit that he was appointed to be her caretaker 700 years ago, he said he had watched over her in secret, and explained that the hero had destroyed the Demon King's castle. However, the king had put a seal to protect his daughter from his other enemies, but hoped that a kind human would eventually rescue her. Victor had awaited for the day that the Princess Sira would rule as the new Demon King, but with his plans having failed, he asked Kelvin to add her to his party, saying that she was awake and was listening to them already. But although Kelvin offered to make him his servant as well, the demon rejected, saying that it was too late and that he could only serve the Demon Lord. His only wish was for her to see the world in peace, so as his soul left his body, the spell broke across the floor. Without a second thought, Kelvin realized that he needed to clean up this mess, so he broke the girl's seal, and thousands of bubbles combined to form a hook that converged with Sira's soul. But as she woke up at that moment, she began to cry at Victor sacrificing his life for her. A few minutes later, they emerged from the barrier, so as a man named Erd appeared before them, Kelvin told him that they had killed the demon. As Ephiel revealed his armor as proof, Erd wondered who the ugly bitch was, so Kelvin told him that she was possessed by a demon, but was actually glad that her magical fish hook was hiding her true identity. However, Gerard began twitching like an addict, so after going to a secret place, Gerard emerged from the void, having evolved into an Abyssal Knight Commander, one of the most powerful S-rank bosses from Dungeons. Even so, he saw Sira was smiling for the first time, but as she asked him if he was okay with having the Demon Lord's daughter in his party, he revealed that he had ranked up his concealment spell to S rank, and promised to always protect her. When they entered the town, Sira was excited at the sight of all the people, and she revealed that this was her first time outside, but Kelvin told Ephiel to watch over her. That night, when Kelvin returned from the guild, he realized that Ruby had thrown a party to celebrate his promotion to A rank, and they drank PG grape juice all through the night. So while everyone had passed out, Sira sat alone outside, remembering the promise she made with Victor to one day see the sea. And as she was happy to finally see the outside world, she wished to one day see mountains and other continents, and to one day even visit the sea, as Kelvin was glad to hear that she was better now. A few days later, they set out on a journey to the neighboring kingdom, and Sira was excited to finally see the outside world with a river nearby. However, as she sensed that they were being watched, a girl jumped into the road, forcing the carriage to stop, and a group of men appeared from the tree. They were an infamous band of thieves called the Black Wind, but as Kelvin activated his appraising eye, he discovered they were level 30D rank losers, and told Sira to kick their ass. So as she leaped outside, the leader began saying that she would fetch a good price at the slave market.
了解。姉ちゃんいいことしようぜ。
お断りよ。
However, the leader thought she got lucky and directed the others to attack at the same time, but they all got knocked away like worthless sacks of shit. And when the biggest moron tried attacking from behind, she blocked it with her hand, easily overpowering his level 200 strength stats. As Sierra wondered where her smile disappeared, she bound them up, but the ugly bitch began saying that she was no match for their level 70 boss, so Kelvin demanded to know more about him. A few hours later, they reached their destination, the water country of Toraj, but Kelvin thought it looked like a ghetto version of Japan. However, Sierra was glad that she finally got to visit the sea, and asked Kelvin to teach her how to use a surfboard, but since there weren't any surfboards in this world, he realized that her flat-ass body would do the job. That evening, they made it to the town's guild, and as the guildmaster introduced herself as Mist, she thanked them for capturing the bandits. However, as she revealed that their previous warriors who defeated the old bandits took up the position as the new ones, she said they had been abducting people and even engaging in slave trades. Wanting to end them all, Sierra began wondering where they were, so Mist revealed that they were inside the town. However, their leader was considered a national hero, and she thought that a single accident could create an international conflict. Just then, Kelvin decided to use thought communication, and asked Sierra if her detection skills were picking up a group of 4 powerful adventurers. As Sierra told him that she could sense a strong presence at the entrance to the town, she thought they were level 50 adventurers, but Kelvin thought it was his lucky day. So as he told Mist that they must allow the heroes party to do all the work, the heroes arrived at the same time. A few minutes later, Mist told them that she needed their help in fighting bandits, but as the useless hero named Toya grew eager to eliminate them, Setsuna tried reminding him that they were sent to another city instead. However, Tomato Head began saying that it was their duty to bring peace by solving everyone's problems. But Setsuna realized he was about to walk them straight into their deaths. Before their arrival, Kelvin had asked Mist to lie to the heroes and promised to save the slaves, but wanted to fight someone before leaving this country. Meanwhile, in a dungeon, a group of girls were chained up as slaves, but as Hisoka wanted to feel his dagger brushing up on the girls, he tried developing isekai plot with the slaves. However, Kelvin and his party appeared at that moment, so as the shit stain realized they defeated their other unit, he tried drawing his sword, but Gerard punched him into the wall. At the same time, the rest of the bandits were in a meeting, so as the leader named Kristoff revealed that their first unit had been wiped out while hunting slaves, a flat-ass bony bitch began threatening him to protect their secret. Just then, the door opened, revealing the Hisoka's shitty face, but he passed out instantly. At that moment, Kelvin and his group went on the offensive, and Sierra's punch broke the ugly bitch's staff, but Kelvin decided to back away. He realized that Kristoff was the national hero. But when Kristoff tried saying that he would crush him, Kelvin couldn't care less about how powerful he was, as he was nothing but a side quest. At the same time, the heroes' party had arrived at the dungeon, but as they noticed it was deserted, they began wondering if another group of adventurers had gotten rid of the bandits. At the same time, Kelvin was growing excited to see them. However, Miyabi revealed that something massive was behind the door, so as Toya drew his sword and burst inside, they saw Clotho before their eyes, and Toya aimed his sword at it. But a little girl managed to stop him, explaining that the slime was the pet of the man who saved them, and warned them to not bully it. Realizing his blunder, the ugly moron decided to apologize, and revealed that they were the heroes of Daramis. So as the slaves were happy at hearing these words, Nana listened to Clotho's voice, and explained that it was ordered to protect the people who were abducted. Toya thought the adventurers had a tamer in their party, but the hot MILF asked them to support the adventurers, saying that the bandits' leader was still alive. Immediately, the heroes' party began rushing to the last room, but as they saw the unconscious bandits inside, the brain-dead moron thought they were too late, as they assumed the bandits were the adventurers. So as they came across Kelvin's group, Toya thought they were the Black Wind, and with Kelvin wanting to rile them up, he began saying that the people before them were a pathetic group of A-rank adventurers, and hoped they would be more interesting. Immediately, Toya drew his sword, saying that their job was to protect the people from thugs, and vowed to defeat them in the name of justice. However, Kelvin told him that they needed to get stronger first, and suggested he battled all 4 of them, with the loser granting the winners any one wish. Realizing they had the advantage, Miyabi tried saying that it was unacceptable, so Toya said they couldn't fight as cowards, and offered to fight him alone. However, Setsuna warned him that Kelvin was dangerous, and suggested they fight him together, so as the others agreed, the Tomato Head decided to accept the challenge. Before long, they began plotting for the battle, and Kelvin was delighted that his plans were working out perfectly, as he wanted to help them grow stronger. However, Gerard thought he was messed up in the head, but Sierra wished she could get in on the action. As Effiel thought it was dangerous, she tried warning Kelvin to be careful, but the meathead was confident he would win, and revealed his new item, the Skill Eater. At the same time, the sight of his worthless body was making Toya angrier, and he vowed to not lose the fight. At that moment, he summoned his light fairy to lend him power, so as Setsuna summoned her wind fairy for support. Nana called forth her water fairy, while Miyabi called upon her dark fairy for assistance. As Toya charged forward, Kelvin cast Radiance Lancer towards him, but Setsuna wondered why he was so strong, before whipping her own attack. At the same time, Nana's pet dragon unleashed a flame breath, but Kelvin dodged it, and appeared behind Miyabi. Using his Skill Eater, he began copying her magical skills while giving her the greatest climax in her life, and Gerard realized the item was made from Victor's armor, but Sierra explained that he could only copy one skill at a time. As Kelvin revealed that he had copied Nana's parallel thinking skill, Toya began rushing for an attack, but he leaped over him, easily backing away. At the same time, Nana cast light healing on Miyabi, but when they realized she was still sick, Toya demanded to know what Kelvin did, and continued going on the offense. However, Kelvin thought he was moronic for ditching the others, but as Toya knocked off his sword, saying he was better than him, Kelvin realized he was no match with the sword. With Toya wanting to press on the advantage, he tried closing in, but Kelvin parried with his hand, and the force repelled him a few inches back. Even so, he returned again, getting his attack parried, but as he continued the assault with his S-rank sword skills, Kelvin began hitting him with 1,000 punches, as Sierra revealed that he was using her S-rank martial arts skill. As his blows overwhelmed Toya, Setsuna charged in for support, but Kelvin summoned a huge wall to shield him. Without hesitating, Setsuna activated her Zenitsu strike, and launching high, she sliced the wall in a single slash. However, Kelvin leveraged the opening to lunge at her, but as Toya rushed in, Kelvin hurled an energy blast to consume them. Luckily, Toya managed to cover her, but when they noticed he was bleeding, Nana offered to heal him. However, Toya began saying that it was his duty to defeat the Demon King and save the world, but Setsuna smacked him to reset his brain. As she told the moron to think about himself, Kelvin thought this was turning into some gross romance confession scene. But Setsuna wondered why Toya would never use his brain for once. At the same time, Nana agreed that he was a brain-dead idiot, but Miyabi suggested they work as a team. So as Setsuna reminded him that he wasn't the only hero, Kelvin promised to use his brain from now on.
俺たちは4人で勇者だ。もういいのか?
However, Kelvin had grown bored of their soap opera, so when Toya told him that they were ready, a fairy light blew up in his face, but Kelvin thought they were getting clever. Just then, Nana cast Frostbond to trap his foot, and Miyabi suppressed him with a strong pressure. As Toya and Setsuna charged at the same time, Kelvin blasted them away, but Toya knew he was only alive because of the light fairy's shield. As Kelvin cast a white magic spell to restore his vision, he was glad that they learned how to coordinate their attacks. But the heroes wondered how he was unscathed. Wanting to school them, Kelvin began telling Nana and Miyabi to follow up with attack spells, but Miyabi said she would never forgive him for his humiliation. Ignoring her useless face, Kelvin told Setsuna to use Heavenswalk in her attacks, saying she was too predictable, and wondered when Toya would use his dual-wielding skill. Realizing he had the appraisal skill, Toya grew determined to unleash his full strength, and released his second blade. Immediately, he rushed at him, and as Setsuna was ready to support him, Nana cast snowflakes towards Kelvin, forming large crystals, and eventually restraining him at the top. At the same time, Miyabi summoned a Grave Death Ogre and launched Gloom Lancer towards him, but Kelvin summoned an Adamantine Guardian to parry the attack. As the heroes noticed a second golem, Kelvin directed them to cover him, and activated a new spell that allowed him to create forbidden spells. As he began creating incantations for the new spell, with his mind calculating thousands of words per second using Nana's parallel thought skill, Setsuna grew desperate to stop him, and sliced the golems instantly. However, Kelvin released Radiance Crossfire to shatter all the crystals, revealing that he could analyze any spell with his appraising eye. But as Setsuna tried utilizing Heavenswalk and rushed at him, Kelvin punched her in the ribs. Just then, he dodged the ogre's attack, but as he evaded another, he knocked Miyabi unconscious, forcing the ogre to disperse. Even so, Nana thought she could inflict damage on him and launched with an icicle shield, but Kelvin unleashed Glory Sanctuary, restraining her mid-air before blasting her with an hyper impact. Luckily, Toya saved her from hitting the ground, and as his anger grew, he began attacking without a thought, but Kelvin bashed his useless face, knocking him unconscious. He told Toya that the only way to protect the world was to grow stronger, and said he would never grow by whining like a worthless moron. Later that day, after Toya woke up, he saw the girls before him, but when he noticed Kelvin, he tried warning him to stay away from the little girl. But Kelvin told him to open his fucking eyes. So as Toya noticed the slime, he realized that Kelvin's group were the adventurers who saved the people. And the girl told him that his empty-ass brain should have figured it out already. Accepting his blunder, Toya decided to beg for forgiveness, saying that they were wrong from the start. When he wondered why Kelvin never revealed the truth, he remembered how he tried to school them on the use of their skills, and as he realized he was a worse moron than he thought, he decided to apologize to his new master once again. However, Kelvin reminded him of their agreement to grant any one wish, so the loser promised to fulfill it.
じゃあとりあえず脱げよ。
Yeah, that brother's starving.
Later that day, all the rescued girls were loaded into a carriage, so as Kelvin watched them leave, Miss promised to send Kristoff and the rest of his group to jail. A few days later, an octopus sent Toya flying during training, so as Setsuna rushed at it, trying to slice it open, she realized it wasn't scratched. But Kelvin had grown bored watching the losers. As Setsuna and Toya prepared for its attack, the octopus charged up with electricity. But Kelvin tried warning Miyabi and Nana to remain focused, and to use their environment to overcome its natural advantage. As they continued to battle it, Sira's massive cannons wondered why Kelvin was trying to train the pathetic losers. But Kelvin concealed that it was because they were from his world. Eventually, the useless group of heroes managed to slay the octopus, but although they were excited to eat lunch, Miyabi knew she had to eat more than Nana. However, after seeing Effiel's massive cannons and Nana's jiggle physics, she realized she was at an overwhelming disadvantage. As they ate, Kelvin realized they were still weak and wondered how they would protect themselves from an S-rank dungeon boss. But as Toya admitted that they couldn't do anything, he promised to run away. Just then, Sira began running towards them, having accidentally awoken an S-rank dragon. But when Kelvin wondered if Toya would fight it, he told him that he couldn't endanger his party and would not fight any reckless battles. As the girls showed their support, Kelvin told him that he passed, having intentionally tested his resolve. The next day, while the heroes' party were about to leave, Kelvin gave them pendants as a parting gift, without revealing the secret spell imbued within them, as he hoped it never needed to be used. Before long, the heroes began sailing away, but as Toya thought Kelvin was incredible, he wondered if he could become like him. At the same time, Kelvin was happy to see the losers gone. But when Gerard wondered what he intended to do now, Kelvin told him that he wanted to avenge the destruction of his kingdom on the Lysia Empire. When he wondered if they could do it, Gerard affirmed that they were strong enough, and thought that Kelvin was an amazing man. At that moment, Sira bumped into him, revealing that a messenger had arrived from the guild. So as she told him that they were being summoned by the king, Kelvin was excited to finally get some rice. By the time they arrived at the castle, Kelvin discovered it was built like a Japanese home, so Gerard revealed that their first ruler reincarnated from another world. He thought it was the reason why the castle had a unique shape, but when they entered, Kelvin noticed the tatami and walked in without his boots. The others decided to do the same, so as they bowed before the king, a girl welcomed them, revealing that she was the current ruler, and said her name was Tsubaki Fujiwara. She thanked them for defeating the cave dragon and apprehending the bandits, but as she was willing to reward their effort, she asked Kelvin to make any wish. Without hesitating, Kelvin decided to ask for some rice, saying they didn't want money from her broke-ass town or her flat-ass chest. But Tsubaki was glad he was better than the previous hero. Deciding to grant his wish, she promised to deliver all the rice he wanted, and revealed the banquet she already prepared. As Kelvin noticed all the food before him, and eventually saw the rice, the sight of it made him excited, and he screamed to finally taste some in this world. A few days later, while Kelvin was eating lunch, Tsubaki joined him at his table, asking him to stay in her nation and work for her. But although Kelvin said they needed to return to Parth, she asked him to become her personal caretaker and take care of her in all kinds of ways every night.
She want me.
As he realized blood was about to be shed, he thanked her for her kind offer, so she decided to give him a special way of going home. Before long, she took them to a teleport gate, saying that they could follow it to their town. The only thing they needed was their guild ID, so as she revealed that Leo already gave them his permission. Kelvin realized that the bastard kept this ability a secret from them, and so they began heading inside. Later that day, after they had returned to Parth, Kelvin revealed that he intended to buy a house to get away from the fat-ass old hag, and soon led his group to their new home. As he told them to take any room, Ephiel asked to stay next to him before going to the kitchen. But the only thing Gerard was looking forward to was the training room in the basement, and Clotho's only wish was to be in the big yard. But after Kelvin made it to his bath, he was excited that he would never enter that room again, because he was as disgusting as you losers watching the video right now. Before long, the two slaves from the dungeon arrived to work as his maids. So as the woman introduced herself as Ellie, she told them that her daughter's name was Luca. That night, when Kelvin tried to sleep, Melfina revealed that he finally had enough mana to summon her. So as he was finally about to see how she looked after all this time, he raised his hand. By the following day, Melfina was having breakfast with everyone, but with the others only seeing her for the first time. Gerard wondered who the new chick in his harem was, so Melfina revealed that Kelvin summoned her last night. As they recognized she was the goddess of reincarnation, Gerard wondered if she was Kelvin's new mistress, but Melfina said that she was actually his wife. A few minutes later, she began eating a huge plate of muffins, but as she offered to reward Kelvin for successfully summoning her, she drew a flower spell that penetrated his body, calling it the Grace of Melfina. As she explained that it had two effects, she told him that the first would completely prevent damage from a wound that would otherwise be fatal once a month, and revealed that the second was the ability to reincarnate heroes. A few hours later, Sira and Melfina began battling for the right to sleep next to Kelvin, but Luca wished she could one day fight like them. So when Sira awakened a right-arm Jin scrimmage, she charged at her, but Melfina activated Divine Dress to block her attack before getting nicked in the face, while Sira's gauntlets lost their magic. After their battle, a session of plot development took place, and I mean massive plot development. But Kelvin was still thinking about Melfina's words when she came and shoved a chocolate into his mouth. But when he saw the black balls, he told her that he'll shove something bigger and blacker into her mouth instead. As she wondered what he was thinking about, Kelvin wondered why they needed heroes to defeat the Demon King. Deciding to explain everything, Melfina told him that the Demon King appeared in regular cycles that couldn't be prevented, and said that no one could predict what form the next Demon King would take. All Demon Kings possessed a special skill called Papias, which could multiply the evil within them to wrap their personality, and to even nullify all damages. Realizing that was basically immortality, Kelvin wondered how the fuck they were supposed to defeat it. So Melfina explained that the powers of the summoned heroes was of a different nature than any in this world, and could neutralize the Demon King's invincibility. Realizing his attacks would be equally as effective, Kelvin wondered why the summoned people were heroes, so Melfina told him that it was only to give a proper appearance. However, she revealed there were two ways to summon people from another world, and Melfina explained that it was through teleportation or reincarnation. With teleportation, he could bring a living person to this world, but for reincarnation summons, she said he could only invite the soul of a dead person and rebuild their body from scratch. And rather than dividing skill points over a group of morons, summoning a single person would allow them to become significantly stronger. As she explained that reincarnation consumed a massive amount of MP, she said he was better off summoning one person at a time, as it would allow him to have another overpowered reincarnation in his party. However, by the following day, Kelvin was ready to use his summoning spell, and explained that he needed enough warriors to support them in avenging Gerard's homeland. At that moment, he cancelled the summoning of his familiars to restore his MP, and Ephiel gave him a recovery potion to max out his mana bar. With Melfina having already begun the reincarnation summoning, Kelvin decided to focus all his MP to summon a single person, hoping it would make them strong. So as he planted his staff to activate the spell, light rays beamed from the circle. But when Kelvin grew bored of waiting, Melfina revealed that the summoned hero was still choosing their skills. Just then, lightning struck through the roof, propelling a heavenly light from the circle as a girl appeared inside. Realizing she was younger than him, Kelvin decided to introduce himself as an adventurer. So the girl told him that her name was Rio, but said that an angel had told her she was coming to another world. When Kelvin revealed that he reincarnated her, he tried apologizing for doing so, but the girl thanked him and began to cry. Just then, she passed out in his arms, and as Kelvin realized the reincarnation had exhausted her, he also passed out from using up all of his magic. However, that night, Rio eventually woke up, but as she remembered her previous life and how she had also died from battling cancer for years, she went outside. It was the first time in her life being outside in a healthy body, but as she began running through the garden, she fell on her face, having never used her legs before. Even so, she was still excited, so as Kelvin appeared before her, he began telling her about his journey since being born in this world, and reminded her that she could leave whenever she wanted. However, she wished to stay with him, as she had always dreamed of going on an adventure in the outside world, since she could never even go to school. He had given her a second chance at life instead of her constant suffering in her previous one, so she asked if she could join his party once again, wishing that she could one day pay him back for saving her. However, her name reminded him of a different useless isekai protagonist, so Kelvin tried asking her to change it, saying that Rio was the most useless name he ever heard. But with the girl's brain too useless to think, she decided to change her name to Rion instead, so Kelvin decided to go along with it, and said that they would pretend to be siblings in front of strangers in the town. So as she was excited to have a brother, she began calling him Oni-chan, and Kelvin welcomed her to their fantasy world of sorcery, saying that they were going to be busy. That same night, Kelvin woke up to see Sira sleeping next to him, remembering that their whole battle was about who got to sleep in his bed. However, he realized that Melfina's massive cannons were behind him as well.
Yo, that one there was a violation. Personally, I wouldn't have it.
As he stared underneath his blanket, he realized that his new sis-con relationship was off to a great start as well, and wondered why the fuck he even got a house if they slept in his bed anyway.
That's not ridiculous. That's not ridiculous to say that.
A few weeks later, while Kelvin and the girls were inside the forest, Ellie wondered why he invited them, so Kelvin revealed that he wanted to increase their levels. When Ellie tried saying that she never fought any monsters before, Kelvin revealed that they would be using his experience sharing skill, and Melfina explained that the EXP acquired from defeating monsters would be shared among the party. At the same time, his party were annihilating all the monsters in the forest, so as the useless maids and Rion leveled up 10 times, Kelvin realized that the skill was working. Just then, Effiel sensed a monster deep inside the forest, and using thought communication, she told Kelvin that it was heading towards them. But as he realized it was a stray monster, he told her to let it through. At that moment, a demon wolf materialized from the shadows, oozing with a magical aura. As Kelvin advanced towards it, he suppressed it with immense air pressure, forcing its HP to decrease, before sealing it away as his newest summon. The ladies were impressed at the sight, and Rion thought he was amazing, but Kelvin summoned the monster as a dog to stay with them. Before long, Effiel activated her far-seeing eyes to see Erd's party approaching. But when they arrived, Kelvin wondered why their ugly faces were patrolling the forest, so Erd told him that they had been assigned to kill a dozen monsters for their B rank exam. Just then, Erd noticed the girls, and wondered why Kelvin's harem was growing, but his useless guys were jealous that he had a flock of chicks while they never had a single one in their entire lives. After the dimwits ran away crying, Sira and Gerard returned, revealing that they already killed every monster in the forest. However, Kelvin realized he screwed over Erd's exam, and Effiel activated her far-seeing eyes to confirm that there were really no monsters in sight. So after returning to the town, Kelvin apologized to Erd for ruining his party's exam. But Erd told him that his group had grown extremely powerful, and said they were deserving of becoming S rank. A few days later at the mansion, Sira sensed that a group of bandits had surrounded their home, and were planning on breaking in. As Kelvin activated his far-seeing eyes, he noticed the men were below level 20, but discovered that the leader was level 26. Thinking it was the perfect chance for Rion to prove herself, Kelvin told her to eliminate all the morons, and she agreed to finally test her powers. As Clotho released a mini slime to aid her thought communication, Kelvin passed on the detect presence to her, and she knew every spot the enemies were at. Just then, Kelvin gave her a blade, calling it the resonating mithril sword, and said it was her new weapon. Meanwhile outside, the leader of the assassins was waiting to avenge Kristoff's capture, thinking the heroes had assisted Kelvin, and directed his men inside. But as Rion slashed one of them, the dog killed another, and Syrah thought she had the potential to learn S-rank swordsmanship. Within a few minutes, Rion had completely annihilated the assassins, and was excited to complete her first mission. All the while, the leader was waiting behind the bushes, but as he noticed the entire house was silent, he whistled to summon his men back. But Kelvin told him that they were all dead. Hearing these words, the man realized that Kelvin must have defeated Kristoff without any help, but the menace was excited. Inside the city of Trison, a group of lords were gathered at the round table, and as the emperor began saying that he summoned them for a serious matter, the dragoon general named Asgrad figured it was about the slave trade. When the beast general named Tristan admitted that he was responsible, the knights general said his actions were inexcusable, and revealed that the other nations were starting to form an alliance for a war. However, Tristan suggested they start the war, saying that their weak armies were no match for them, and that they could finally achieve their desire to unify the continent. Wondering if he was thinking with his flat brain, the hot-ass General Shotora told him that the other nations were not so weak, but Asgrad revealed that they had a special monster they had been waiting to unveil. Even so, Dan was against the war, saying that the idea was ridiculous, but as they were tied in the decision, the Emperor commanded that the 5th General be summoned to the meeting. So as Dan's son walked past a line of traumatized women, he entered his throne where a bunch of them were passed out, but General Clive decided to flash him instead, asking him if he thought he was pretty.
Ugh. Brother, ugh. What's that? What's that, brother?
At the same time, Kelvin and his group were traveling through the Crest Forest, hoping to find an elf village. Because the previous day, Leo had told Kelvin that the Kingdom of Trison sent the assassins to attack him, and as he revealed that they were also attacking their neighboring nation Gone, he thought they intended to invade it. As Kelvin figured they had declared a war, Leo warned him to be careful, saying that Trison could attack him again. Just then, he showed him a letter from the Beast King of Gone, saying that he was offering him an S-rank promotional exam. So as Rion thought Kelvin was amazing to have earned an invite from a king, Melfina revealed that the Beast King was also an S-rank adventurer who left his home to get stronger. With the king being equally strong, Syrah began wondering why they were being assigned to protect an elven village as Kelvin's S-rank exam. So Kelvin explained that the king wished to stay neutral in the war. Just then, an arrow landed in their way, but as Kelvin realized they were surrounded by elves, he revealed his letter, explaining that the King of Gone had ordered them to come. At that moment, a man appeared before them, apologizing for their ignorance, and introduced himself as Nelrez, the elder of the village. As he thanked them for coming, he noticed Ephiel, and began wondering how she was still alive. However, after they arrived inside the village, Nelrez apologized for getting her mixed up with someone else, but Kelvin demanded to know who he was talking about, saying that it could give them a clue in discovering where Ephiel came from. So as Nelrez agreed, he began explaining the story. 20 years ago, they had lived in a forest on the western continent, until they were attacked by the Fire Dragon King, who demanded they offer up the elf that defeated him in battle. So as it began burning the village, a girl named Lumo decided to confront it, and offered herself up as a sacrifice before getting carried away by the dragon. The elf was Ephiel's look-alike, but as Rion thought she was courageous, Nelrez revealed that her body was eventually found inside the forest. The discovery had made them fear that the Fire Dragon King would return, and had forced them to leave the western continent. With Ephiel having had the Fire Dragon's curse, Syrah began wondering if Lumel was her mother, but Melfina revealed that dragon's blood would have been too strong for her. She thought her father was definitely human, although her mother was likely Lumel herself. Noticing she was sad, Nelrez decided to apologize for having no clue where she came from. But Ephiel told him that she was happy to be surrounded by the best comrades. Even so, Kelvin began wondering how elves were being abducted by the Trison Kingdom, so Nelrez explained that their monsters were leading the way to the village, and were nullifying their barriers in the forest. Nelrez told them that they had lost several of their kin, and said that even the Gone soldiers couldn't stop them, but Syrah promised to protect them. That night, the Trison army began marching towards the village with a group of monsters, and as the Meathead commander thought the Gone soldiers were hiding, He told his men to prepare for an ambush. However, as one of the men began saying that they were unstoppable, he fell off from an attack, and a light arrow killed the second. When they checked his body, they only noticed a wound, and the commander wondered how it was possible, seeing as they were still a mile away from the elf village. Just then, another got eliminated, and arrows killed several others, so as the commander told the others to hide, the losers disappeared. At the same time, Kelvin was directing Effiel to her targets, and she thought her new S-rank shadow bow was incredible. Earlier that day, Kelvin had built a watchtower using adamantine rampart, and with Melfina's blue false fog making the walls invisible from the outside, Syrah had enhanced the moats with her black magic to make it impregnable with Gerard. With the girls ready for battle, Kelvin reminded them to protect the village, and warned them to not damage the forests. Before long, a soldier rushed back to the camp, reporting that they had been wiped out by an unknown enemy, and that even the commander had been captured. He thought they were a party of adventurers, but the girls were annihilating all the monsters at the same time. By the time they arrived, the sight of them made the useless soldier afraid, but with the general desperate to win, he blew a shell to summon the gigantic lord. At that moment, the giant woke up, but Rian was excited, so Melfina told her to defeat it, calling it a test for becoming a full-fledged adventurer. As she asked if she could handle it, Rian told her that she could, and rushed off with the wolf. At the same time, the worthless commander told the giant to end them, but as he missed with his punch, Rian and the wolf began rushing up its arm. From behind, her sword broke on his skull, but as she dodged his backswing, the giant punched the dust to repel her. Luckily, she managed to survive the attack, so as she began charging back, retrieving new swords from Clotho, they rushed up his arm again. Combining powers, they circled around his body to generate enough lightning that struck him down. But as the shit-face commanded the giant to transform, he burst into flames instantly. With his god powers, he tried to crush her, but Rian launched towards him, and as she thought he was still weak, she worked with the wolf to generate another lightning strike that destroyed him from the inside. This made the soldiers run away, but Rian was proud of her victory. All the while, Kelvin was watching everything, but as he blocked a sudden attack, Clive's useless ass face appeared before them. As he noticed Effiel, he thought she was the hottest girl he'd ever seen, and commanded her to be his slave, activating his slave charm, but Kelvin erased it. When Clive wondered why his disgusting face was getting in his business, he revealed that he was the general of the Trison Magic Knights, but Kelvin told him to stay away from his woman. As he decided to activate his appraising eye, he discovered that Clive had unique skills, and wondered if he reincarnated, but Clive wondered how he saw through his A-rank concealment passive. As he wondered if Kelvin also reincarnated, Kelvin told Effiel to hide inside the walls, so as she escaped, Kelvin leveraged on Clive's distraction and released a strong wind that blew them away. Immediately, he activated a canceling spell that consumed the tower, transforming the particles into obsidian edges. But as one launched towards Clive, he managed to block with a barrier before repelling it. The loser told Kelvin that he was the main character of this worthless show and called him a useless side character, but Kelvin's spears launched at him again. However, they couldn't break through the barrier, so as Kelvin released shots at it, Clive told him that nothing could penetrate his helix barrier, and repelled them all. At that moment, Kelvin realized he was strong, but as he managed to block an attack, his spears held off the rest of the girls. From the hypnotized look in her eyes, Kelvin realized that Clive had charmed his entire group, but Clive still wanted to add Effiel into his party. However, as a laser shot penetrated his barrier, Clive realized that Effiel had fired it. Just then, Kelvin's golems appeared to join the battle, so as Kelvin explained that he gave them souls so that they would act autonomously, Clive realized he used black magic. As the golems clashed with the girls, Kelvin realized they would finally have an uninterrupted fight. At that moment, Clive readied his scepter, so as they launched high into the sky, Kelvin evaded his attacks and soared towards him, but Clive told him that he was invincible. Immediately, Kelvin overwhelmed him with attacks, forcing him to maneuver his way through, but as Clive offered to make him his servant, he released energy beams that followed Kelvin across the skies, until he destroyed their edges. Even so, Clive thought he could kill him, and shot more energy beams, but Kelvin noticed they were hitting the girls, and tried warning him to stop, but Clive couldn't care less about their deaths. Without any other option, Kelvin decided to ascend further towards the sky to pull him away. However, Clive began saying that humans were meaningless in this world, as he was superior to them, and revealed that the power he acquired when he reincarnated allowed him to do whatever he wanted as if he was God. So when Clive demanded to know if he was enjoying his new life, Kelvin told him that he only enjoyed battling strong opponents. But as Clive cast Helix Barrier, Kelvin summoned Vortex Edge, and as they collided, the immense power eventually spread into a blinding light. After it settled, Kelvin's scepter melted off, but Clive discovered he was scarred. The realization made him lose his mind, but Kelvin made Clotho eat out his long staff, while Clive threatened to teach him a lesson. Deciding to unleash his true power, Clive activated his ultimate S-rank spell, so as his scepter absorbed the wind in the atmosphere, creating a huge barrier, it released a mighty tornado that stirred the entire forest. The mighty wind began blowing everyone away, but as Kelvin pulled out an S-rank black staff, he activated the magic in his gauntlet to create the greatest spell known to this world, awakening the power of the Death Scythe. So as he flew towards the tornado, he sliced it in half, forcing it to disperse. However, Kelvin thought his black staff still needed some work, as he realized that Clive had only lost his legs. But when he tried to end him, Clive disappeared at that instant. Just then, Kelvin spotted a man on a golem, so as he told him that he was Tristan, saying that he was the one who suggested the plan to attack the elven village, Kelvin commanded him to give back Clive. However, Tristan told him that the moron was still valuable, but as Kelvin figured that the golem had a special power, Tristan told him that they were admitting defeat, and vanished instantly. A few minutes later, after Ephiel returned to the village, he told the elves that they had defeated Tristan's army, and said the village would be safe. This news made them excited, so Nelrys commanded that they prepare a banquet to celebrate the victory. However, as Gerard decided to mimic Kelvin's declaration of Ephiel being his woman, Ephiel admitted that his words made her happy. Just then, Kelvin materialized behind her, wondering what happened, but the overwhelming emotion made her useless brain heat up and caused her to climax. In the Tryson Kingdom, Clive finally woke up from being unconscious, but as he realized he was chained up, Tristan told him that he had healed his legs, but a spike ball smashed his body. As he explained that he intended to test his cursed weapons on him, having discovered he reincarnated, he called him the perfect test subject, and said he would keep him from dying, so the girls began piercing him at the same time. Back in the elf village, all the people were celebrating the victory, but Kelvin was far away on the hill. As Ephiel arrived, revealing that Nelrys gave her an item belonging to Lumil, she realized that she really was her mother, and said she was happy to have come to this village. So as Kelvin used the item to bind her hair, Ephiel asked to continue serving him, but Kelvin was happy to continue having a pro bono worker, especially one that was a pro for his bone. Just then, the others arrived, but as a girl rushed into Kelvin's arms, he wondered who the useless kid was, but she apologized for appearing in this form. She told them that she was the Beast King of Gone, and as she explained that she had an item that changed her form, she said she had observed the exam and announced that they passed. As she revealed that the official promotion ceremony would hold in 4 days, and that Kelvin would have a mock battle with other S-rank adventurers, she hoped he would be ready. However, the thought of fighting other S-rank made Kelvin excited, and he began saying that he couldn't wait for the battle. So as Sira thought he was hopeless, Ephiel said he would always be a battle junkie.
行こうぜみんな、もっと強い奴らに会うために。
Watch this next video. Till next time, my fellow legendary plot masters.